I'm guessing you remember how you got your start working in game dev, or what lit that spark in the first place. Maybe it was putzing around with some code at home, or working on a project with some friends at school. It could have even been a job. Either way, it's probably likely that the path between where you were and where you are came with some twists and turns that were a little unexpected. Our next speaker is here to talk about some of those surprises that he's encountered on his journey into game dev. Founder of the studio Canteen, please welcome Sam Scaife.
Hi, I'm Sam. This is my talk, Surprises on My Journey from Hobbyist to Full-Time Indie. This is my first time giving a games talk, so please bear with me. So this is me and my wife, Vicky. We're a two-person indie studio based in Brighton in the UK. For years, we've both been game dev hobbyists. We worked full-time in different industries and would occasionally take part in game jams or work on little prototypes in our spare time. I found one of the very first things we ever made together. This was a little platform we tried making for Ludden Dare back in April 2015. It's our dream to be indie developers, and at the start of 2020, we quit our jobs and started on our journey. Since then, we've been working on our first game, Corporation: The Sorting Process. It's a dystopian narrative game about being a low-level employee in a corporately owned state. Honestly, it feels so crazy to be able to say that. Today, I'm going to talk to you about what it's been like for me to make this jump to being an indie. And as the title says, I'm going to especially focus on some of the things that I found surprising. If you're thinking about setting out on your own journey, hopefully you'll be able to find something in here that kind of resonates with you or helps you on your way. I really remember being shocked when I heard how long some games take to make. The idea that what looked like a simple game could take so long didn't feel right to me. I think something that led me to this misunderstanding was my experience in game jams. The amount of work you're able to output in a short, intensive period of time, like a game jam, is massive. But to maintain that level of work over a long period of time is something that I'm not able to do. Not only that, but there's a real difference between throwing some dodgy code together to get something working and creating the same thing in a way that you'll be able to expand and work with. Things like being able to save the game, have tools and workflows that allow you to balance it, or even have text and interfaces created in a way that means you can localize them in the future. All these considerations add a lot of extra time that you didn't realize was going to be there. You'll also get a bunch of time added as your game changes over time. As you play and create it, you'll have new ideas or realize that parts don't work how you want them to. This is an early prototype of a key space within our game, the player's room. Over a couple of months, this went from being a simple box menu to being a physical space that players can decorate. The amount of extra content that we added to accommodate this was massive. Now that I've had the experience of actually working on a game full time, I think that making a game in 4 years by yourself feels pretty quick. So the next surprise I'm going to talk about is that you're going to doubt your project. This really feels like kind of any creative project. And even when you know it's coming, it's still surprising. Making games is really hard. You're trying to take a version of something that's in your mind and create art, music, story, and solve a bunch of technical challenges, probably over several years. In that time, it's so easy to get stuck over and over again. And when you do, it can be really difficult to understand what the cause of your doubt even is. If you're in a large company, there's often someone around with more experience than you to ask for help. As an indie in a small team, you don't necessarily have that. I always find it super useful talking through with Vicky when we have a problem that we can't deal with, but we don't always have the experience to know how to solve it quickly. Another area that's left me doubting our game is the experience of sharing it with the world. Every time we've done something, from tweeting to being in a showcase, it leaves you feeling excited and nervous. The desire for your game to be successful, however that looks for you, brings a lot of stress and emotion. As we've gotten closer to launch, I've had to respect this more and more. It took me a couple of weeks to feel like I'd gotten back to normal after we launched our demo on Steam. Trying to acknowledge how much work we put into various launches and make sure we've got time off planned to recover is a big skill I've been learning this year. The next surprise is another that might feel obvious, but the reality of it is still surprising. No one loves your game as much as you do. What I mean by this is that being a founder hits different. Or to put it another way, the experience of working on something that is your dream and all the decisions, successes, and failures are all your responsibility is so very different from being employed and working for someone else. With how large game projects are, it's likely that at some point, other people will join you to help out. This could be friends and family, playtesting, musicians or other professionals that you've hired, and even press contacts that you're hoping will cover your game. No matter how much they say that they love your game, it's just not going to be the same as how much you love it. I think I found it important to kind of temper my own expectations to match this. I always try and add extra time for planning and feedback to help the people we're working with succeed. It's been so important. With the past few surprises, I've talked about things that I've found challenging or difficult. With this next prize, it's been a massive support for me over the years. What you've learned already is valid. As a hobbyist working in different industries and having never spent more than 3 days in a row working on the same game, doing this every day felt really scary. What I quickly realized, though, was I wasn't starting from nothing. In our time as hobbyists, we'd actually learned loads about creating games, and that came in all sorts of different forms. There were practical things about how to set up a project in Unity so that we could both work on it that came from doing game jams. There were conceptual ideas that I'd picked up from watching YouTube content, like Game Maker's Toolkit or GDC talks, that help us make informed decisions about our game and imagine what we could add to help make it better in the future. There was also practical knowledge about what tools and workflows are out there that I'd picked up from reading various books, like the idea of beat chart and how that can be used to plan out and visualize the experience of your game over time. The experience of playing games was also super relevant. Being inspired by creators like Arcane Kids and Davey Redden gave us guidance on what type of games we'd like to make. As well as countless hours playing World of Warcraft and Stardew Valley meant that we knew the style and pacing of games we both really enjoyed. Alongside this built-up knowledge about games, what I'd learned from past jobs and life experience was also super useful. There's a big mix of hard and soft skills that you need to have when you're making a game. What those skills are going to be different for each of us. For myself, I was a designer working in advertising, so I'd learned how to mood board creative ideas, which I found myself using time and time again as a way to help get me started and be less scared of the blank page. Being an indie means that you've got to do 20 different jobs all at once. No matter your background, you'll have some experience that will help make some of these jobs easier, freeing up some energy to spend time learning about the areas that you're less confident in. Sometimes, as you grow, you might discover better ways of doing something that you've done in the past, but that's okay. Given how long games take, you're going to be doing this time and time again as you get better over time. My final surprise has been so encouraging and helpful to me over these past few years. People are so supportive. I've been blown away by how much support and encouragement there is out there. We've benefited massively from people who've offered their support or from sending a friendly message to someone and asking if they could give us advice. Being an indie is hard, and helping others through that seems to be such a common trait across the industry that it's fantastic. I spoke earlier about there not being someone in your office that can help if you're stuck. And while that's true, there's definitely someone online that might be able to help you out. The style of advice you'll get will be different. People are not going to do your work for you. But if you've got a challenge coming up, reaching out to people for support ahead of time gives you and them space to help out with a bit of advice or encouragement that will help you succeed by yourself. Depending on where in the world you are, there might be local events. I definitely encourage you to go along to these. While it's easy to feel imposter syndrome when you're first going, after chatting to a few people, you'll quickly learn that loads of people would love to be working on their own projects, and you'll have lots to talk about. If you're someone that happens to have a few different meetups, try them all out. For us, each of our local events has a very different vibe, so take the time to find which ones work for you. There are also online communities, events, and programs that you can join, like the Game Devs of Colour Expo. In the UK, we have a program called Limit Break that provides mentorship to underrepresented people in the UK games industry. Have a look around and find what's out there for you. So that's it for my list of surprises. To recap, it's going to take longer than you think. You're going to doubt your game. No one loves your game as much as you do. What you've learned already is valid, and people are so supportive. Being an indie is really crazy. It was hard picking just a few, but hopefully I've given you something to think about and some encouragement to get you started. Before I go, there's one last thing I want to mention. Earlier this year, I was super lucky to be selected as part of the 2023 Ensemble Cohort, an initiative for the London Games Festival that showcases video games talent from Black, Asian, and underrepresented ethnicities. It was an incredible experience, and I met loads of people. There were two main things that I took away from this, and I wanted to share it with you all. Everyone has their own route in. Everyone that I spoke to had their own unique ways into games. There was no normal or typical experience that people shared. So whatever your position, it's legitimate. And if you want to be an indie, today is just a part of your journey. The second takeaway was that people like us from underrepresented groups have a place in games. As part of a diversity initiative, I'd expected to be one of the only people with brown skin at the event we went to. But that was not the case. We do still have a long way to go, but with people like us joining in and helping each other succeed, we're on our way. That's everything. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support us, please give our game a little wish list or try out the prologue. And if there's anything that you think we can help you with, do get in touch. Yeah, we'd love to hear from you. Thank you, and good luck on your journeys.
We'd love to believe that we can plot out every point on our map to success, but life somehow always ends up a little bit more complicated. That said, I love how Sam was able to take those curveballs and turn them into lessons that are great for both veterans in the industry and neophytes alike. However your path turns out, I hope you remember Sam's closing lesson that we do belong in games. Thank you for your talk, Sam.